It's about to begin the first of our 2 semifinals here at the Dallas Open, hosted by Ultimate Guard on the SCG Tour. Teammates Kevin Jones and Pete Ingram facing off in the semifinals. We are looking at what could be a rematch awaiting in the finals. Pete Ingram and Andrew Jessup both in the semifinals. Teammate Kevin Jones, one of the players who stands in the way of that, he's going to try to take down Pete Ingram, but it's going to be tough. JESKAI control, a great deck here and great in this matchup.
Yep, Pete on the play as well. Luckily for Jones, this is Serum Visions and not Ancestral Vision for Ingram.
Sure. Turn 1 Island, Scry of 2.
Legacy players,
it's one of the things that makes the matchup hard. These decks are both Snapcaster Lightning Bolt decks that Pete has Visions in the main. That's got to be a win for him.
Yeah, in a lot of games, drawing those extra cards is going to be significant. GRIXIS Delver can run away with some. It's going to be more so off the back of Tassiger than it is going to be off Delver of Secrets, just due to the immunity to Lightning Bolt. But it can steal some quick games.
So end step, Kevin thought Scours himself gets a land and a Gurmag Angler in the graveyard and passes. Both players right now just trading land drops, some cantrips as they develop mana.
And these early turns are going to be a lot of nothing in these kinds of matchups, and for that reason, one of the most important things is just keeping up on land drops.
Making your land drops for sure. Pete has made his first 3. Kevin end step fetches out a Water Grave. Both players are missing a color right now. Kevin with no red, Pete with no white.
Yep. Presumably Kevin has at least a 3rd land, or he likely would have fetched for his Blood Crypt with that fetch land.
Right, same thing, Pete getting his basic island. Mountain from Kevin, and a main deck Vendilion Click for Pete. This one can be a pretty good beating.
Yeah, it's usually pretty easy to deal with the Vendilion Click, but if you don't counter it outright, then Ingram will get to look at your hand, and if you do counter it outright, Kevin would have to tap out of the ability to counter potential Nahiri.
Right, and that's the danger, and it's why Kevin's going to let this resolve. So his hand is 2 Terminates, 2 Spell Snares, Mana Leak, Remand, Snapcaster Mage. The biggest danger in here is that there's no land.
Yeah, and given that, if Peter is very versed with how these kind of matchups go and correctly identifies that GRIXIS Delver's trying to play a long game and not trying to just aggro him out, I think you just let Kevin keep all this stuff and play around it with the knowledge that it's there. Let Kevin be choked on mana.
And that's what Pete's going to do.
Well, Pete actually wheeled the Mana Leak out of Kevin's hand.
Oh, okay. So the Mana Leak's gone. Kevin gets a card. And while Pete's tapped out, Kevin's going to Vendilion Click Pete. Now, the danger would be if there's 2 Nahiris in here. Mm-hmm. There's 1. So Pete's hand, Nahiri, Lightning Bolt, Remand.
Now, if Kevin has the kind of luck that I have with Vendilion Click, he's going to pick Nahiri, and Pete's going to draw Nahiri.
That's always how it goes, right? So we see Nahiri, Lightning Bolt, Remand, Ghost Quarter, and Sacred Foundry. He takes the Nahiri. Now Pete untaps. This is his chance to resolve something big. Nothing big going to happen. Bolt will take down the Vendilion Click. Pete will get in damage, though. Kevin goes down to 16. Sacred Foundry played tapped. So you go back to Kevin Jones. Pete has left up 2 mana. There's a Remand in Pete's hand that both players are aware of. We go to Kevin's turn. His draw for the turn, a Delver of Secrets.
In between the draw from the Vendilion Click and the draw for the turn, he's missed on that 4th land. He has the option to play Delver and leave up Remand, though the Delver is going to die to one of several spells in Pete's hand. If Kevin's lucky, it'll be Path to Exile.
That would be great, right? Kevin actually just will play nothing then. Sits on a 7-card hand and passes. We go back over to Ingram, plays his Ghost Quarter. Only card Kevin knows about in Pete's hand now is that Remand. Looks like he's picked up Steam Vents, Snapcaster Mage, Path to Exile. But he's starting to establish a mana advantage as here comes Vendilion Click again. Kevin down to 13.
Presumably, Kevin will be going for a Terminate on this click on Pete's end step.
Right, but Kevin has to take all this extra damage and do these things on end step because he needs to respect Nahiri out of Ingram's deck.
Yep, exactly. If you did something with this mana and then Nahiri just came down, it'd be very difficult for Kevin to recover.
Pete passes the turn, end step, Terminate on Vendilion Click. I'll see if Ingram just remands here. Remand really would capitalize on Kevin's lack of mana.
Given that Kevin didn't cast Delver, is there a spell snare? He has 2 spell snares in his hand.
2 spell snares, yep.
So he's going to fight over that.
Pete knows about him too.
Yep.
Does he want to trade his Remand for a known spell snare?
You got to get him sometime, right? Better the Remand than a Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, he'll Remand. Kevin will snare. That's an easy decision for Jones. I don't know. I'm curious about running the Remand into there. In Pete's spot, I almost would want to wait till I had a second Remand and then just really punish him by remanding my own Remand there. Or just, waiting until I could really get him.
That would be great. I don't know if you can necessarily wait for that. There's 3 Remands in the deck. You won't necessarily be able to top deck it. If you know you're getting a spell snare, then you at least know that the spell snare is not targeting Snapcaster Mage, and that's just the most important spell in this matchup.
We are still on Pete's end step. Now he has an option to make a Snapcaster Mage. He's going to Ghost Quarter away the Watery Grave from Kevin. This is some... Let's look at Kevin's deck list for a second. For basic lands, okay, he has 2 islands, a swamp, and a mountain. It's just fine here.
Yeah.
But he does cut Kevin off black mana.
Yeah, so you could have cut Kevin off of black mana or double blue. In game 1, there's not a ton of black spells, though Kevin does still have a second Terminate in his hand. Though there's only going to be Snapcaster Mage left in Ingram's deck as targets.
Remand is the draw for Kevin. Now he'll make Delver of Secrets, but still no land in sight.
Well, if Pete casts Path to Exile on the Delver, then Kevin will go find that swamp.
Draw from Ingram. There's still a spell snare in Kevin's hand. Pete's going to have to respect that. It would stop him from a play like Snapcaster Serum Visions here.
That'd be a very aggressive use of Snapcaster Mage in this kind of matchup. I'd be very surprised if Ingram went for that. You really just want to sit on Snapcaster Mage as long as possible and try to get the most value.
Yeah, I do agree. I feel like there's pressure on Ingram to press a mana advantage here.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised at the cracking of the Ghost Quarter just because it's an extra mana for Ingram.
Sure. He's going to go ahead and shock for Steam Vents. He's going to go ahead and try for the Snapcaster Serum Visions play. So here's Snapcaster Mage. Kevin has a spell snare that they both know about. And it's actually going to be Lightning Bolt that he's going to give flashback to. And Kevin's going to try to remand the Lightning Bolt. Peter will mana leak the remand. So Bolt does resolve. It takes care of the Delver, but Pete is tapped out as we go to Kevin's turn.
And now Pete is really low on cards.
Yeah, Kevin still has Terminate, Spell Snare, and Snapcaster Mage in his hand.
And he picked up Lightning Bolt, so he gets to turn everything right around here.
Bolts away the Snapcaster. We go back to Ingram. He just passes. And Kevin now hits Steam Vent. Still has not found a black mana, but he has found land 4.
Yeah.
As Ingram just continues to draw some lands. No more further action. Players quickly trading card draws back and forth. It's a Snapcaster Mage for Jones, an island for Ingram. End step, Kevin's going to try for Snapcaster Mage. That could not get spell snared more quickly.
Now Kevin probably still wishing he still had that remand so he could remand his own Snapcaster Mage, but he has a second copy, so that's great.
He'll try it, and this is going to work. Wait, no, second spell snare from Ingram. Everything trades.
That was a very fortunate series of draw steps for Ingram.
Electrolyze the draw from Kevin. One of those in his main deck here. Still passes. We go back to Pete. No play. Back to Kevin. 3 mana. End step Electrolyze on Pete. 2 damage. Pete down to 15. Kevin will draw.
I like cycling Electrolyze here. Kevin has to get something going on the table.
Or off the table, as it were. Electrolyze flying there. He'll place it back in the graveyard. Draws Delver off of the Electrolyze.
We have Team Brady with 21 points.
Here is the Delver.
And Pete's been holding on to that Path to Exile, though that would just go and find Kevin's Swamp, and then he'd be able to cast anything in his deck.
Yeah, he's picked up a Steam Vents, but still no black mana for Kevin Jones. It's been a lot of turns. He'll play Steam Vents tapped. Pass to Ingram. Pete, there is a draw they want. Ancestral Visions, suspended on 4.
That's either a great top deck or a terrible one. We'll see exactly how long this game goes from here.
And here is Steam Vents. Unfortunate on Ingram's side, he has yet to find something like a Celestial Colonnade.
Right. Colonnade's one of the better cards in this matchup. Kevin does have a Terminate in hand, doesn't yet have the mana to cast it, though there's Blood Crypt.
Right, so Delver of Secrets hits Ingram down to 14. Ancestral Visions goes to 3. Kevin, next turn, will have that black mana available.
If Kevin were able to pick up a Delve creature, a Tasigur on this turn, he has already milled the Gurmag Angler, but if he could pick up Tasigur on the next turn, that would be a huge swing for Kevin.
Just Flooded Strand and one other card in Pete Ingram's hand. He will pass. Kevin untaps, checks Delver. Is it going to flip just yet? It does, off Serum Visions nonetheless.
If I was Pete, I'd be inclined to Path to Exile during the upkeep here. Serum Visions is a pretty solid draw.
Here is the path. He's going to go for it. Now, if it gets remanded, there's only one white mana source in play for Pete, so that actually would pause it for an entire turn.
Yeah, and Kevin does have Snapcaster Mage Remand.
They will become final.
Now, if Kevin just lets it resolve, I wonder if he would just not find the basic swamp and draw Serum Visions. I'd probably be inclined to make that action now that I have my black mana anyway. There's no counter squalls in the deck, so black mana is not especially taxed in game 1.
So he does have that Snapcaster Mage in hand. Exiles, does he go get the swamp? No, he does not. Well played, Kevin.
I like that a lot.
Draws the Serum Visions. He'll take the top card. It's a land.
Really wants Tasigur here.
Mana Leak is one of the top 2. I don't think he'll want that. He'll put the Mana Leak on the bottom. Another one stays on top. We'll find out what that is next turn.
Yeah, we're kind of past the Mana Leak stage of the game.
A little too many lands in play.
Yeah, Pete's able to cast Nahiri and pay for Mana Leak.
There's Bloodstained Mire from Jones. We go back to Ingram. Ancestral Visions will go down to 2. Ingram cannot want that to happen any sooner. Needs these extra cards. Passes the turn. Now Kevin starts to press the advantage. End step, Snapcaster Mage, targeting Electrolyze.
Love it.
Casts Electrolyze. Is that one going to work? It is. Pete's going to go ahead and Lightning Bolt the Mage in response, but 2 damage to Ingram. He'll go to 12. Kevin will draw.
This next turn is going to be very important for Jones. Can he find another threat? Ingram's life total is getting very low.
12 each as Kevin uses that Mire to find another duel.
Cracking this Mire does shuffle that Mana Leak back in the deck. I'm not sure that I'm in love with cracking that fetch here.
Are there many needs for that double black?
No, and he also still has the Swamp in the deck if he ever needs it.
And speaking of that Swamp, I believe he drew it for the turn.
If you are in 9 through 32nd place, please line up on the left-hand side of the stage.
That's his last basic land.
In just a couple minutes.
7 lands in play for Jones. Players at 12 life points apiece. Jones ahead on cards in hand, at least for the next 2 turns, as that Ancestral Visions waits to be cast.
Yep.
And another Snapcaster Mage for Jones. One of the, feeling like one of the most important cards in this matchup. He'll cast Serum Visions off it.
And normally you want to get more value out of Snapcaster Mage, but being under the gun of that Ancestral Vision, I really like being aggressive here.
He draws Mana Leak, scries 2, but one of those 2 scries was to the top. As it plays, looks like debating if he wants to play the basic Swamp. He will and pass. Spell Snare and Mana Leak and Terminate, the 3 cards in Kevin's hand. 1 counter now on the Ancestral Visions. Pete draws Serum Visions. He'll draw. He'll scry 2. Nahiri and Fetchland. Well, one of those seems great and one seems terrible.
Yeah.
One easy split here for Ingram.
Nahiri is a great find. Lands an easy bottom.
Draw for Kevin. He topped 1 card here. We'll see what it is.
Nate Hurley to the stage, please.
Thought Scours Pete. No, actually himself. I was wondering whether he would mill Pete for 2 since Pete scried to top.
Yeah, I would have liked targeting Pete. There's also a point. Kevin's graveyard's huge. He has more than enough stuff to delve away. I probably would have targeted Pete, but it's a pretty minor thing.
Swings for 2, Ingram's to 10. Ancestral Visions on upkeep just resolves for Pete, so a big draw. Nahiri, Mana Leak, another Nahiri, now all in Ingram's hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking for Mason Lynn. If you're in the room, please come up.
So Kevin hanging out with double Mana Leak, he can stop Pete from advancing his board on this turn.
Yep. Here's Nahiri. Jones will Mana Leak. Ingram could pay, but he's starting to run out of life points.
Standard classic player.
He does pay. Another mana leak from Jones. That one works.
After 8 rounds of
Nahiri's
space,
countered. And for Ingram, it looks like Celestial Colonnade the play for the turn. He'll pass back to Jones.
Kevin's still hanging out with that Terminate, though.
The tide's turning, but Pete's running out of life points. Kevin hits him down to 8 with the Snapcaster, says go. For Ingram, it's a draw. It's another land, Flooded Strand. He'll try Nahiri a second time. Does Kevin have 2 more mana leaks?
No, he does not.
He does not have any. So Nahiri on the table for loyalty. Does she go up? Does she go down?
His hand is so bad that he really wants to rummage. But at 8 life, I think you have to exile Snapcaster Mage.
Ingram's still with a mana leak in his hand. It's saying his hand has 2 lands and a mana leak.
Ugh.
And for Jones, I mean, it's so hard because if he goes up, Jones has Lightning Bolt in hand.
If he goes down,
he loses the Nahiri to the Bolt.
Yeah.
If he goes up, the Bolt goes to his face.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the Dangerous Life total of 3. I don't know if I like that either.
No.
Is Joshua Willis.
Tough choice
If
here.
you
Which
made top 8, please bring
I think you
them.
have to -2. You have
One
to.
ritual will take them from you. After that, please
just
report.
how much is after. There is every card in the deck is in Kevin Jones's
The
graveyard.
judge is waving his arms.
He hasn't yet found a Tasigur.
He pluses it. Discards Flooded Strand, draws
Standard
Hallowed
Classic players,
Fountain.
Please take time
Ugh.
to review your standings. They will be final with
Now the
no
question,
ability to
can
change
Kevin
either
find another Lightning Bolt, a
state in
Snapcaster
5
Mage? Can he
minutes.
win on this
They are
turn?
posted
Hallowed Fountain
on
pass.
the
Kevin draws. It's a lightning bolt.
out
Is he gonna go for it?
hallway.
Swings Ingram down to. He will try to pass
Once
to
you have
exile the
reviewed those,
Snapcaster
if
Mage.
you've finished in 9th through
Kevin, you see,
32nd
he
place,
puts those 2 lightning
you may
bolts in the front of his hand.
form a
He is
single file line at
so
the right
close.
side of the stage.
That path
Please
was
have
gross.
ID ready.
Passes.
Once we finalize standings
I like. He could have
in 4
bolted the
minutes
Nahiri
now,
down, but he's
we
saying
will
no.
begin
Those
your
are for
payout
Peter.
process.
Yep. Still alive to win this game with a Snapcaster Mage off the top.
Nahiri up to 8. Danger. She discards Scalding Tarn, draws Snapcaster Mage for Ingram.
That one might lock it up in Ingram's favor.
Kevin draws Tasigur. It's the card he wants to match up, but it's way too late.
Yeah, that Tasigur is super late.
Still could be good, though. We'll see here. Tasigur delves away 5.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin's going to have to throw some of these bolts, I think, at the Planeswalker now.
Yeah, he has to get Nahiri off of 8 because he just dies to it. He's at 12.
To the judge area, all standard classic
A big price. I think so. He hung onto the bolts because he wanted to see if he could hit a Snapcaster Mage or something like that. But if he, I don't know. I almost still want him to bolt down the Nahiri that turn if he's not going to go upstairs. It's close. But Tasigur's in play. Or at least on the stack. We'll see if it resolves. Kevin has to get some loyalty off the Nahiri.
Yes.
Is dead if it -8s. There's still an Emrakul in Ingram's deck.
Unless Pete draws Emrakul for his turn. That would be pretty bad.
Ugh. Ugh.
Though given
You're
the
not wrong.
Given the Snapcaster Mage in hand and Kevin's on 12, even with a top deck Emrakul, this game wouldn't be outside of Pete's reach if Kevin didn't go for this Lightning Bolt.
Now he casts a Lightning Bolt. He can say that the bolt is at Pete. Doesn't have to say whether it takes loyalty or life points until it resolves. It's going to resolve here, though.
Yeah.
Players in the Legacy Classic, if you will be participating in the top 8, please meet me in front of the stage.
Big decision point here for Ingram.
If you will be participating in the top 8, please meet me in front of the stage.
What does he want to do with Lightning Bolt? He has a Mana Leak, a Flooded Strand, and a Snapcaster Mage in hand.
So Pete could Mana Leak, Snapcaster, Mana Leak, and that would tap Kevin out, but then he wouldn't have anything left in the tank to capitalize on that.
Nahiri goes down to 5. Pete draws for the turn. It looks like he drew his main deck copy of Anger of the Gods. That one's no good. Nahiri up to 7. She'll discard the Flooded Strand. Draw as Ancestral Visions for Ingram.
Yeah, this is not the time in the game where we need that
You
one.
don't think there's 5 more turns in this game?
I'm gonna take the under.
Well, Pete's going to take the over. He suspends it.
Yeah, what else do you even do with it?
Discard it to Nahiri.
Yeah, he'll find something else to discard.
That Mana Leak's not particularly good anymore, I suppose. He passes to Kevin. All right. Does Kevin, he activates a Tasigur, I think.
Well,
no, he does not.
Yeah, he could be at He could get got by removal spell, counter spell, some nonsense if he activated Tasigur.
Here comes Tasigur. It's at Nahiri.
Okay, so he still has the lightning bolt to clean that up, and then he can start activating Tasigur.
If Pete lets the Nahiri go down to 3, then Kevin will put her down to 0.
Yep.
He still has the Snapcaster Mage. I believe he has a Path to Exile in his graveyard. He can do things here.
Yeah. Kevin does still have Spell Snare, though, right?
Oh, there's a known Spell Snare, and Pete knows about it. It's been there since the beginning of the game.
Pete could activate Celestial Colonnade and Chump Block, which I don't hate.
Oh, I guess, yeah, why? Okay.
And then you can just use the Nahiri to exile a Tasigur.
There's a Terminate that's known in Kevin's hand. His known cards are Mana Leak, Terminate, Spell Snare.
Kevin's hand's great.
This Tasigur, I'm going to do some work.
Yeah, Pete's options look pretty bad on this turn.
A Mana Leak, Snapcaster Mage, Anger of the Gods. None of those do this. None of those work here. Okay, activates Colonnade. Okay, Kevin will use the Terminate they know about. Floats a mana. Nahiri goes to 3. Not many options on Ingram's side. He needs to maybe top deck another Nahiri, I think.
Yeah, a Nahiri off the top would be brutal here.
Kevin would get 1 Tasigur activation, but there's a lot of junk in Jones's yard. Ingram will just load him up on Terminates or something like that.
Yeah, giving him the Terminate back is pretty whatever. It's probably still got a Thought Scour hanging out there. The Terminate,
at least that's a card.
Yeah, the Terminate's worse than Thought Scour, but there's some activations that'll be pretty bad.
All right. And Kevin passes. Upkeep, he will Lightning Bolt the Nahiri.
Okay, I got some respect for that. Though, yeah, because he still has a Spell Snare, so this should work out.
If Peter Mana Leaks, he denies Kevin a Tasigur activation. I don't know if Mana Leak's getting any better.
Yeah, the Tasigur activation is super minor, though.
Right.
The
question is how minor is the Mana Leak,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Not that the Mana Leak isn't.
I guess if Kevin has picked up a Snapcaster Mage, Mana Leak would take him off of... Oh, and it doesn't even have a... If Peter top decks a Nahiri, Kevin doesn't have a defense. So Nahiri goes down. Ancestral Vision down to 3. Draw for Ingram. It's another Snapcaster Mage.
That is strong.
So here's Snapcaster. Kevin, fetch line and Spell Snare. Yeah, okay, he'll Spell Snare. Oh, wow.
Well, now Pete can
wow.
Snapcaster.
He could Snap Remand here. If he has enough land, if he had more land, he could Snap Caster targeting Remand on his own Snapcaster Mage, then play Snapcaster and path the Tasigur.
Yeah, I guess he's 1 mana
He's
off
one
of
short.
doing that. That's pretty gross.
I think he would do it if he had the mana too.
Yeah.
It's so much value.
This is still fine.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and Snapcaster Path to Exile the Tasigur. Kevin will respond by milling 2 and giving Pete an option of just about any card to get back.
With the Snapcaster on the table, the Terminate has some value, I suppose.
12 and 8 are the life totals.
Yep. Kevin still has 2 more Tasigurs in his deck.
Looks through what to give him back. It's going to be a Terminate. Kevin can have that one. Now, Tasigur's exiled. No more basics in Kevin's deck.
Yep, all 4 of them hanging out over there. 2 islands, a mountain, and a swamp.
Now Kevin's turn to untap. He's going to need another Haymaker. That Ancestral Visions is waiting. There are 2 more copies of Tasigur in the deck. He'll terminate away the Snapcaster Mage and just has to pass. Now Visions ticks down to 2. A draw from Ingram. It's a Flooded Strand. That one's no help. His hand, Anger of the Gods, Mana Leak, Flooded Strand. It's basically a bunch of blanks. Kevin, speaking of blanks, Scalding Tarn. Visions down to 1. Serum Visions for Ingram. That one's good. He'll cast it. The draw. Didn't get a look at that, but we do see the Scry.
There was a Path to Exile, something else.
Draw was a basic Plains. That's not anything good for Pete either. Timely Reinforcements, Path to Exile.
Yeah, looks like we're keeping both of those. And next turn with the Ancestral Vision, he'll be drawing both as well.
So he can gain up to 14. I mean, Ancestral or Timely's just, well, don't get any creatures off it, but it gains you 6. That's good. And Path, he wants that because Tasigur is still the most important card?
Yes. So Kevin just cracked a fetch land. His second Watery Grave was hit by a Ghost Quarter earlier in the game, so there's actually nothing left to find.
Okay, so goes to 11. A little misstep. Probably not going to punish him. He draws and passes, and Ingram looks to get in control. Ancestral Visions draws him 3. He draws the turn up to a 7-card hand.
And this is Ingram's game to lose from here.
A lot of blanks. He has multiple mana leaks, Anger of the Gods. I don't think he has a way to win just yet.
Yeah. Timely would only gain 6 life until Kevin casts a threat.
Kevin draws mana leaks. So now they're at that point where very few cards are mattering. These early game tempo cards not doing anything for him. It's 2 paths, 2 leaks, Anger in Ingram's hand, Timely in a land.
Yeah, just really fun and exciting magic happening at this stage.
Well, I like the idea of land mirrors going late like this. What's amusing about this is that these decks that are all based around having lots of really good cards, when you get to this point in their game, they suddenly look like decks full of lots of bad cards. like none of these do anything.
Yeah. Though something does something. Pete just picked up a Snapcaster Mage.
Well, that card is great.
Attention Magic players, just a friendly reminder that the StarCityGames.com sales booth, along with their other vendors,
checking out Kevin's graveyard.
Yeah, how many Spell Snares do you have left, Kevin? How many Snapcaster Mages do you have left? Do I want to wait on Snapcaster or do it now?
He's at the point where he's going to have to start discarding to hand size if Pete doesn't run out the Snapcaster Mage, which I guess is okay. I mean, it's not like Mana Leak really counts as a card anyway.
Could also just cast the Timely to gain 6 life and pass the turn.
That's fine too. He'll play the Snapcaster Mage. Does it resolve? Indeed it does. It's going to flashback Serum Visions. I assume he's looking for Nahiri.
Yeah. He's still a bit off of hard casting Emrakul.
He did find a Colonnade on top with that Scry, and he's going to leave both his Scryed cards on top. I suppose Colonnade is a fine way to win here. And you see after drawing, he plays a Colonnade that he found off Serum Visions.
So Pete is actually not prepared for a game in which he would want to hardcast Emrakul.
There aren't that. It's not possible.
Had he not already used his Ghost Quarter, he would have exactly 14 mana sources in his deck.
Oh no! Oh, that's bad deck design right there.
Just throwing away value.
So Kevin is going to cast a Kolaghan's Command here. Wanting to deal 2 to the Snapcaster and then return a Snapcaster from graveyard to hand. This is a one-of in Kevin Jones's main deck. Great in the matchup, I would assume.
Yeah, though 2 mana leaks from Pete will take care of this nonsense.
He gets to cash in the mana leaks. What a treat.
It's like a Force of Will.
I mean, these were cards that were very dead, and now they did something.
Yes.
Even at the price of 2 of them, it's great.
Yep. Doesn't even have to pay a life.
Kevin's counting to make sure. Yep. What he's doing is he wants to know if he can mana leak back. I think he's counting land sources in Pete's deck.
And also, the fetch land does damage.
Okay, so yeah.
If he has to find untapped duel, then he's at 5.
All right.
8 and 7 are pretty much the same, but
8 and 5 are different.
8 and 5 is a full card worth of different life total.
I mean, how good is that mana leak going to be anyway? Maybe just let's fire it off and try. Kevin's going to do it.
What else are you going to do?
All right, Pete will go to 7. I guess there is a land there. Yeah, it's a basic, unfortunately. So, all right. Kevin cashing in a mana leak for 1 damage.
Mason Lynn and Paul Gooch to the side of their stage. We have your
Little Hornet Sting there.
We go back to Ingram. And Kevin's on the ropes with that Colonnade that Ingram played last turn.
Yep. Shouldn't be long now.
So Kevin untaps for his turn. That was all during Pete's end step. Draws the Dreadbore. He'll Dreadbore away the Snapcaster Mage. Pass the turn. He still has a Terminate in hand for Colonnade. Pete knows this. Pete gave him the Terminate off that Tasigur.
And Lightning Helix off the top for Ingram. That's significant here because Kevin's only out is to try to bolt Ingram out of this game.
And timely reinforcements to gain 6 life for Ingram. If you think the out of Kevin Jones is to Lightning Bolt, then this is a 2-for-1. Just gain 6, nothing else.
A Hymn to Turak. Not exactly.
Oh,
Kevin's hand is actually terrible. This is better than inventory. Blanks draw steps.
He'll pass to Jones. Jones plays Dark Slickstars, passes. Draw from Pete. He'll just keep trading turns back and forth. He knows that he's got this one. Or rather, it's Kevin that has to make the first move. And now Pete has found a Nahiri. This was the game plan all along. He will cast her.
And Pete's been hanging on to an Anger of the Gods that he wouldn't mind rummaging here.
Pluses Nahiri, discards an Arid Mesa, drawing a card. Seems great.
It's also worth discarding.
Something that does just about nothing.
Bennett Bartlett, please
And now Pete's starting to close.
Bennett Bartlett.
That Emrakul looms out in the blind eternities, waiting for Nahiri to summon him.
Emrakul promising to end this game.
Here's a Snapcaster Mage from Kevin. He has a Dreadbore in the yard. You see he's moved it right up to the top.
Yeah, no secrets. I'm going for this one, Pete.
Well, there's still some Nahiris left in Ingram's deck. And it's not like he can get milled either. He has Emrakul.
Well, so he moved the Dreadboard to the top, but went for a Kolagon's command.
Oh, the greedier play. So Kolagon's command getting back the other Snapcaster Mage. I like this. Doesn't have to take out on Nahiri that way. You can get more creatures. Draws Scalding Tarn.
Oh, yeah, so seeing as it was end-step action, yeah.
Snapcaster will attack Nahiri. Here's a Lightning Helix on the Mage. And what I like here is that Pete can afford to use all his removal on Kevin's creatures. Kevin has this balancing act where when he draws Lightning Bolt, he wants it to go upstairs and at Pete's cards. But Pete just knows, if this game goes long enough, Colonnades, Nahiris, those can win. Lightning Helix can always be for creatures.
Kevin needs to find threats to play the game. Pete's very capable of stopping him from winning the game. Kevin's basically on Lightning Bolts. Pete's life total is so high that he needs creatures to supplement that. So if Pete just kills all the Kevin stuff, he realistically can't lose this game.
I feel like with Pete going up to 16 here, Pete's win con, Kevin's going to mill out eventually, right? Pete's win con is just, I have Emrakul, I can't mill.
Yeah, 16's looking a lot like sideways 8 here, too.
Yeah, here's Snapcaster Mage, the one that Kevin got back. It will flash back Dreadbore to take care of the Harbinger. So we go back over to Ingram. His draw is the copy of Emrakul. If he wants to, he can just build up to 8 cards in hand and discard this. Just reshuffle. If he's worried about being milled. You already mentioned only 14 mana producers in his deck. Not to mention he used the Ghost Quarter, so it's really like 13.
Yep. No Dark Ritual. Or Seething Song is banned in Modern.
You only need one, right? You're like, this is my one way to cast Emrakul. I draw the one of Seething Song. I draw the one of Emrakul. I get all 13 of my lands. Boom.
Cast a couple Desperate Rituals, and we're there.
Tasigur, the draw for Kevin. It is his second Tasigur. Probably his most important card at this point in the game. I would be shocked if Peter doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, he's got a Path to Exile hanging out.
Kevin will get, it looks like, 2 activations off it. Does this matter, though? There's a lot of... Kevin's trying to delve away all the junk in his graveyard.
Yeah, well, he's already gone through Kolagon's command.
Yeah, that one was exiled from Snapcaster.
Just a lot of Kevin's business is officially out of the question.
Delves away Terminate, Delver of Secrets, Mana Leak, and 2 lands. Surprised about the delving away of lands here, but I'm not sure he actually wants Serum Visions. Or Spell Snares.
Definitely doesn't care about Thought Scour. I'd delve that one away for sure.
We're at the point, so Pete's going to path to exile the Tasigur, and here goes Kevin with the activation. So the first one, mills 2, puts another Mana Leak in the graveyard. That's not a great one. Looks like Mana Leak and Thought Scour were added, so maybe it doesn't matter what you delve away if you're putting the garbage cards in with those two.
Yeah, you really can't control that. And there's not much that Kevin wants to draw left in the deck anyway.
Peter, while shuffling by, shows the lightning bolt. We're not giving you this one. Gives him a Spell Snare. Path to Exile still on the stack here. We'll see if Kevin activates again. He's got to think, what card would he get? He'll probably, net a Mana Leak? Maybe a second Spell Snare?
I mean, once you give him one Spell Snare, you may as well give him two, though I would have been tossing Thought Scours at Kevin. Thought Scour is worse than Spell Snare.
Yeah, it's worse. I think Pete has chosen the card he knows he can beat than the card he can probably beat. You know, at least with Spell Snare, I know the card that's in Kevin's hand. It's not random.
Yeah.
Kevin looking through Ingram's graveyard.
Yeah,
Two Nahiris.
Pete has used some Ancestral Vision, fetched a bunch, Nahiri'd a little bit. You know, maybe he's worried about Kevin just pointing Thought Scours at him. I don't think that's a realistic end to this game, though.
Tassiger's exiled. We go back over to Ingram. Now, this is the fun part. Yeah, that is a single-digit number of cards in Kevin's library. It looks like Ingram has more. If he's worried about it, he can just, as mentioned before, go up to 8 and discard that Emrakul.
Yeah, that'll make that number a lot higher.
There's at least 5 cards in Ingram's graveyard. He can cast Serum Visions. That one is neutral on cards. Ancestral Visions and Remand on top. It was 8 cards each.
It seems to me that Pete could have played this game in a way where he could have won with damage.
I like this kind of magic, okay? This is, even when I can win with damage, this is how I choose to win my games.
He's decided to go with the way that would be most boring for the viewers.
When I'm winning a game, it's so much fun, I never want it to end.
Okay.
Here's some damage. So Ingram will go ahead and Anger the Gods away the Snapcaster Mage, activate Colonnade and Swing. Terminate from Kevin will take care of the Colonnade. Another Colonnade from Ingram.
Well, Pete's committed to not discarding that Emrakul to hand size.
To hand size, but there's some Nahiri left in his deck, so he could just discard it to Nahiri.
Yeah.
Kevin passes. I don't believe that Kevin has the requisite cards left to kill Pete with damage. I don't think he can win the mill race either. A swing for 4 puts Jones down to 7. Pete draws. Here's Tassiger from Jones.
Well, activating this one would certainly be a way to lose the mill race.
Right. Delving away 3 lightning bolts? I would think he'd want lightning bolts.
You just can't activate Tassiger anyway.
No, yeah, I know. It doesn't really... It doesn't matter what you delve away.
I guess he's trying to Snapcaster Thought Scour or something.
Oh, Thought Scour Ingram. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. He'll mill with Tassiger, so he's trying to get some Thought Scours. Mills Spell Snare, Serum Visions. Another Spell Snare given to Jones. And Ingram passes. Draws. We'll see. His own Spell Snare. He activates Colonnade, attacks, and Lightning Bolts. And after 37 minutes, Game 1 goes to Pete Ingram, JESKAI control.
Yeah, that's about how I anticipated Game 1 to go in this matchup. There was a brief window where it looked like Kevin might have stolen it, but the JESKAI control deck is generally going to be favored the longer the game goes, especially in Game 1 where there's all these Delvers and kind of some nonsense still in Kevin's deck.
Well, those are just at its core, that game highlights the difference. So these, on the surface, these look like the same deck, right? They're Lightning Bolt, Snapcaster Mage, Remand, Mana Leak, Spell Snare decks. But then you say, okay, once you finally get down to the nuts and bolts, how are these two decks different? And when we got to about turn 20 there, I think the difference just started to become more and more pronounced.
Yeah, well, you're going toe-to-toe with another deck that plays a controlling game. Would you rather have a 1-mana 1/1 or a 4-mana Planeswalker? That's the fundamental difference here.
A 4/4 flying land versus...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Celestial Colony also huge in this matchup.
So, Pete Ingram looking to go back-to-back here in Modern Opens. Last time in Indianapolis, he had to defeat Andrew Jessup in the finals. Same deck. May have to do it again. Over on the other side of the bracket, 2-0, Andrew Jessup repeat in the finals. It's all people on Metagame Gurus at this point. He defeats Jared Toad 2-0. One more win here from Pete, and the rematch is on.
Oh, wow.
But Kevin's going to still have something to say about it. Let's look at the sideboards. One thing we saw last game was that Ancestral Vision in Pete's deck, and not in Kevin's deck, really did matter. Kevin's got 4 Ancestral Visions in his sideboard. I'm assuming his sideboard plan starts there. How else does it go?
Counter Squall is great here. You can counter both Nahiri and any Ancestral Visions for Pete with that. Love Counter Squall. There's some argument for Crumble to Dust because Celestial Colonnade is so good. I wouldn't be surprised to see 1 copy of Crumble coming in here, even though it's kind of a goofy-looking card for a matchup like this. Dispel is going to be very good for fighting counter wars, and that's kind of where... And actually, the second Koligon's Command is pretty good in this matchup, just because it can recur Snapcaster Mages, so I like Koligon's Command a fair bit here as well.
Over on Pete Ingram's side, we have a Celestial Purge, an Engineer Explosives, a Timely Reinforcements, a Wear Tear, a Stony Silence, a Dispel to negate Wrath of God. I like this one here. 2 Geist of Saint Draft, 2 Crumble to Dust, and 2 Spreading Seas.
I could see Pete sideboarding slightly different play draw. Geist of Saint Draft on the draw is not going to be necessarily fantastic. I like having these coming in this matchup on the play, though. And then Pete has Celestial Purge to deal with Tasigur. That's a great addition coming out of the sideboard. Good argument for bringing in Timely Reinforcements just for that gain 6 life mode. Even if Kevin's bringing out the Delvers, you still have that way to kind of cheese out the Lightning Bolt Snapcaster Mage plan.
Dispel Negate, that one's easy to say you want it here.
Yep.
What about something like Spreading Seas? If the game's slow enough, it is not terrible.
Yeah, Spreading Seas is fine. There's no utility lands to hit with it, but you can take Kevin off of his colors, particularly when Counter Squall is coming into the deck. You can kind of choke Kevin on black mana, so Spreading Seas I actually like a decent amount in this matchup.
So I guess if all these things come in, what are the bad cards? What does he board out? We saw both players, their mana leaks got bad very quickly. Maybe those leave in the matchup?
Some players do take Mana Leak out in these matchups. I do like Mana Leak, at least on Kevin's side, to make sure you can hit the Nahiris on turn 4, though Pete's Mana Leaks are significantly worse than Kevin's, so those could definitely come out on Pete's side. There's some argument for just removing Emrakul from the deck. You don't need to cheese them. You can play these long games with the Lightning Bolts and the Lightning Helixes and the Snapcaster Mage. So I like getting that one out, and the Anger of the Gods is not very exciting from Pete's deck either. So just trying to be more lean, play the game at more an instant speed pace, and win it with lightning bolts.
2 teammates getting ready for Game 2. Pete Ingram hoping to secure that rematch with Andrew Jessup in the finals. We'll have that as soon as they present. Now, one thing, we reached the end of June. That means the end of the June Star City Game Night pin and token. If you don't know those ones, these are given away as prizes all around the country for stores hosting Star City Game Night. So for June, we are giving away the Otter Spell. This is the Merfolk Wizard, of course, countering your spell. We've been wearing that one on our jackets all weekend. I particularly like this one. I'm always down for a good counter spell, especially a good parody on it. Next month, we will be switching over to the Snipcaster Mage, a card that's a 4 of in both of these players' decks. This one's pretty great. Given away, you see both on tokens and then the crab itself on pins. Now, to get signed up for this, your store has to head over to StarCityGames.com Game Night, and we can get you right now signed up in time for August. So August, we'll be moving over to another Delver card, this one more in Legacy. It's the Young Burrowmancer. He's the 1/1 Donkey Elemental token. That will be given away on tokens and pins as well. So find a store near you or get signed up. Both you can do over at StarCityGames.com/Game Night.
Young Burrowmancer's cool dude, knows it, makes no apologies for it. Really like the art on that token. Pretty cool stuff.
Not only on pins and tokens, though, some of these guys also, if you're a fan of these, I know you're a Snapcaster Mage kind of person.
Yep.
Kind of like that in your decks. You can get them on lots of different products. So this is part of the Creature Collection. Right now we have Otter Spell. This is the June one. Now available on playmats and sleeves. This is the parody of Counter Spell, which we see here. Was it the 4th edition Counter Spell, I believe?
Yeah, 4th edition has a art. It was in an earlier set than that.
I guess that's when I started playing, so that's why I think of it as the 4th edition Counterspell, but it's probably, in my mind, that's where it will always be.
I like that it's little snakes biting his fingers. I didn't realize that that was what was happening there.
Oh, yeah. I actually didn't know that. I thought it was magic, not snakes.
Magic snakes, maybe.
It could be both. Find out more, StarCityGames.com/Creature Collection. We got playmat sleeves and then the player bundle, which is a playmat and 2 sets of sleeves, all for one price. These are illustrated by SCG's own Andrea Radek. who illustrates all of the creature collections. So game 2, Ingram versus Jones. Jones will be on the play again. Now, you had mentioned that in this kind of matchup, Delver of Secrets gets boarded out.
Yep.
Even when you're on the play, is that true? Or is it a play draw thing? I mean, turn 1 Delver on the play is a great thing to have.
It is, but Pete's deck is so flush with answers that the issue is more that drawing Delver on turn 10 is really bad.
It's just a 1/1?
Yep.
And there will be no turn 1 Delver if they're even in there at all for Kevin. He starts out on a tapped Steam Vents. Ingram, he will take 3 to suspend an Ancestral Vision.
This is looking grim already.
That's like the thing you want to see least from Kevin's side?
Yes.
Blood Crypt go from Kevin. We saw this last game, land go from both players. Where it really hit was that Kevin missed land drop number 4. I think Pete hit 6 before Kevin hit 4.
Yeah, and even with that happening, there was a window where Kevin realistically could have closed that game.
Yeah, he had, what was it? Ingram was at 8, Kevin having 2 lightning bolts. It was just, you were so close.
And what it came down to is the extra cards off of Ancestral Vision in that first game.
Players continue to trade lands here. No action outside of Pete's ticking Ancestral Visions. It's now down to 2 as we enter Kevin's 4th turn. All 3 colors of mana for both players. Last time since Control Mirrors, you see it's the first person to miss a land drop is the first person who has to do something.
Yes, and you don't want to be the first person with the action. One thing that is kind of nice is if you are worried about missing a land drop, you can just lightning bolt your opponent, which is often where it's going to go anyway.
Now, here's a question, though. So if both players, let's say, make land drops 1 through 7, no one ever has to start the action, right? I feel like if we get to that point in the game and no one's done anything, huge advantage Ingram just based on the deck registration sheet.
Game 1, I 100% agree.
Okay.
Post-sideboard, Counter Squall does change that some.
I guess what I'm saying is that if Kevin knows he's down on the board and he's still not missing his land drop, at some point does he have to start action anyway?
So usually the first thing you do is just cast Lightning Bolt as Lava Spike, and
Okay.
Kevin will still have some 1-mana stuff to be proactive with post-board. He still has the Delve creatures, and that is an advantage.
So Pete on Kevin's end step of turn 4 went for Vendilion Click. Trigger on, Kevin electrolyzes the click, 1 to it, 1 to Pete, and draws. Now the trigger resolves off click. Kevin will reveal his hand. It is a Swamp, a Bolt, a Tasigur, a Snapcaster Mage, a Dreadbore, and a Gurmag Angler. This is most of the weapons that his deck has to offer.
There's a lot to like about this hand. The redundancy on Delve creatures is not great at this stage in the game. He should have a good amount of time before Pete really starts getting proactive, so he can make up for that some.
Yeah, I like that the Dreadbore's in here. Without that, Kevin would not have a clean answer to Nahiri. It would have to be Bolt, Snap, Bolt, or something like that. He actually left Kevin with all the cards and then just took his turn.
You gotta feel bad anytime that happens.
Yeah, you see he moves his visions to 1, suspends a second visions, plays Colonnade, says go. Just going to try to beat him on the raw cards front.
If anything, I was kind of expecting Pete to take Dreadbore there. He must just not have a Nahiri.
Okay, yeah, he would take Dreadbore if he had the Nahiri. Tassigur's a good card. You could argue he maybe just takes that.
I mean,
except that the 2 Delve creatures thing you talked about.
Yeah, and there's also no real way for Kevin to pull ahead by activating Tasigur. There's so much that Pete can do that Kevin maybe gets 1 activation in, so the Delve creatures are more redundant than anything.
Kevin cracks fetch on an end step, draws another Snapcaster Mage. Plays Swamp. No more lands in his hand, but Kevin's hand has a lot of action. The difficult part is Peter's hand has a lot more cards. We're now going to go for that Ancestral Visions that was suspended. Pete draws 3, then draws 1 for the turn. And now Pete's going to probably play something just so he doesn't have to discard.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that Pete didn't wheel something there is you would help Kevin to draw into, say, Counter Squall or Remand for that vision. Now that that's resolved, he's pretty firmly in the driver's seat.
So actually he draws for the turn, plays a land, and doesn't have to discard to hand size. He's just at a full 7. And Kevin will end step Bolt. Does get Ingram down to 12, so he's making inroads there.
Theoretically.
Yeah, you see Pete has a Dispel in hand and just chose not to Dispel the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
That can't feel good.
Well, no reason to Dispel from 15.
Kevin passes the turn. He is the first one to miss a land drop here on turn 6.
A lot of things in the lesson found. There's cards,
Ingram will fetch down to 11.
Ingram hanging out with a bunch of mana leaks in his hand. He has that Dispel. It's going to be really hard for Kevin to fight this game. It looks like it's going okay for him. Just on the table, if you look at the life totals,
sure,
he has a Snapcaster Mage to Lightning Bolt, but Pete's going to be able to interact with that very effectively.
It's deceiving, right? Because this is what the board looks like when Ingram is winning.
Yeah.
Like, Ingram ticks his divisions down to 2, plays a Colonnade, says go. That is exactly what Ingram wants to be doing here.
Yeah. If Kevin was playing literally Burn and had this many cards in hand, I would like his position with this many lands in play.
On Pete's end step, we're going to go for a Snapcaster Mage from Kevin Jones. Easy Spell Snare from Ingram. Interested by the Spell Snare, so Ingram actually also could have Mana Leaked here, which is kind of a cute way to counter Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, you can get your 2-1 or whatever, but playing that way, he does have to play a little bit safe. 11 isn't infinite.
Kevin Jones will attempt to counter Squall away the Spell Snare.
I would expect a Mana Leak here.
Yeah, cash in one of those. If the Counter Squall resolves, Ingram would go to 9 off the Counter Squall, down to 6 off the Lightning Bolt. There's no way Pete can allow that. So he'll Mana Leak, and it ends up being a 2-for-2 trade. But now Kevin gets to untap. Ingram only has 2 mana. It's a window for Kevin to resolve a spell.
Yep, and he does still have those Delve creatures, so he can get on the table.
Still has Tasigur and Gurmag Angler in hand, along with another Snapcaster Mage. So Kevin will fetch.
I'd be inclined to start with the Gurmangler.
So yeah, there's extra point of power versus activated ability.
Extra point of power, and if Pete has Path to Exile, I would rather that one got pitched. That way, you know, maybe Pete does not have a backup removal spell.
All right. He's going to go for the Tasigur. I don't know if it matters which one he goes to. Pete's going to try to remand. Kevin, Snapcaster Mage plus Counter Squall knocks Pete down to 9.
Okay. Some pressure on Pete to have a pretty impactful turn here.
Yeah, Visions ticks down to 1, but there's a lot of power on the board for Jones. Pete's at 9. He's going to need a play.
Yeah, that Mana Leak's not doing for him in his hand.
Yeah,
Dispel either.
Mana Leak, Nahiri. This is actually
he has to
a
take
scary spot.
He has to take a hit off a Tasigur before he can Nahiri it.
And just maybe Kevin can complete the aggro plan. The reason Pete had tapped this low was that Kevin had the pair of Snapcaster Mages. He forced a fight on Pete's end step over a Snapcaster Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, and Pete's hand might have been too counter heavy for the way this game played out. If he had a Path to Exile, I'd feel a lot better about his position.
Right. No answer to the Tasigur until it attacks. This is a big one. If Pete can survive to his next turn, he's going to get another Ancestral Visions.
Yep.
That will do a lot of work in cleaning things up.
A ton of very good draws that he could have off of that. Even just a simple Lightning Helix here would significantly improve his position.
It looks like he's going to just go for Nahiri. And this is interesting. So he can just cast Nahiri, tick her up to 6. Huh. I kind of like that, actually.
I do like it because you either will untap with a Planeswalker or gain a bunch of life.
Whoa.
This is aggressive.
Yeah, he's shocking for Steam Vents. Goes down to 7 and just passes the turn. All right.
So he's representing the ability to activate a Colonnade to block, cast a couple spells on top of that. I think Lightning Bolt for Snapcaster Mage, leave up a Dispel so he doesn't die to a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, he gave Kevin 2 points of damage there. That was big.
Maybe he's trying to punk Kevin out of attacking, though you just have to attack here.
I mean, it could work if Kevin had another line, but he doesn't. Maybe it's a bad attack, but Kevin can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So here's Colonnade. It's activated.
He does know that one in Kevin's hand is still Gurmag Angler. That's not going to matter on this turn.
Will Colonnade block Tasigur or Snapcaster Mage? We'll see here. If he blocks the Mage, Peter will go to the very dangerous life total of 3.
A chump block here seems fine, given that theoretically next turn he can Nahiri and exile the Tasigur, assuming he doesn't draw something better to do off of the 4 cards he'll be receiving on his turn.
All right, it's going to go in front of the Snapcaster Mage. So now this Dispel in his hand has... it's got to counter a Lightning Bolt if Kevin has one. Yeah, That's the play.
He's thinking real hard on this one.
Yeah, this is real close.
He's leaning this way, but I like the other block.
Now Snapcaster, Tasigur, counting up Kevin's mana. Kevin has 6 lands in play, 3 cards in hand. Pete Ingram knows that one of them is Gurmag Angler, and that one of them is Dreadbore. So he's going to block the Snapcaster Mage. There's only one card he doesn't know about. Ingram goes to 3.
Unfortunately for Jones, it's a polluted Delta.
Post-combat, Jones will Dreadbore away the Colonnade. And, yeah, land Angler. Does Kevin just commit the Gurmag Angler here?
I would cast the
Yes.
Angler. The feeder is that Wrath of God happens on the following turn.
Well, hold on. We're in post-combat here, so you got to count Kevin's lands. There's a mana floating in Pete's pool. He could mana leak here. Now, Angler delves 6. 4 cards in the graveyard, so Angler, I believe it's 4. So if Angler still costs 3, the mana leak is live.
Yeah, true enough.
Confirm that Pete has... Yeah, we'll see. Actually, so this is nice. Kevin's going to go ahead and activate Tasigur, mill Snapcaster Mage, land.
So I don't know. There's nothing that Kevin could get back here that would change casting Angler. Maybe he just didn't have enough stuff in his graveyard to do this without activating Tasigur first.
Yeah, gets the Dreadbore back, but we'll get a count on his graveyard. Does Kevin have enough in his graveyard? Yeah, there was one hiding off screen there.
Yeah, so given that he picked up all the cards exactly, yeah, he had to activate Tasigur first if he wanted to do both things.
Ancestral Visions here from Ingram. 3 more cards. Visions, Nahiri, Dispel. In hand. Does he have? He needs a kill spell for that zombie fish.
I don't think he has one. Did Ingram just punt by not mana leaking?
I don't know that he had the mana floating. We'll see here.
Did he just punt by not floating mana?
Maybe. A lot was going on there timing-wise. I'm not
definitely.
I can't say for certain. 2 Nahiris in Ingram's hand, but the Angler's not tapped. And
No.
Ingram doesn't have 8 mana in play anyway.
A couple problems with that.
4 mana, Nahiri. She'll exile the Tasigur. Likely. Kevin has 1 card in hand. It's Polluted Delta. If Ingram commands the board, we're done. It looks like Nahiri has to go up to draw. So Ingram's hoping to hit Snapcaster Path, and he can't do it. So game 2 to Kevin Jones evens it up.
I feel like Kevin stole one there.
Inclined to agree. All right, well, even at a 1 game apiece, Kevin trying to throw a wrench in the rematch here. He has tied it up with teammate Peter Ingram.
And he definitely made the right play there, going for the Angler on that turn. There's no way that he could win if a turn cycle was to go through for that, just passing with a tapped Tasigur. Then he just loses to the Nahiri with counterspell backup.
He knew about the Gurmag Angler, so real close here. We're going to go, these players are going to get ready for game 3. Now we're going to tell you a bit about the weekly sale here at StarCityGames.com. Different products on sale every week. So this one ends Monday morning. So if you still want this one, you're going to have to get in today. You can save on select sealed products and complete sets. So boxes of the new set, Shadows over Innistrad, or if you're not one to crack packs and you're not into drafting, but you need the cards for your constructed deck, complete sets, one of every card in the set on sale. Find out that and look for next week's great deal over at StarCityGames.com.
Really like these weekly sales. There was one a little while ago for MP foils. Bought a bunch of stuff for a cube of mine. Pick up some draft sets on this one. They're a pretty good rate.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pete Ingram, the SCG Indianapolis champion, now going to have to claw back and get that game 3. Maybe one that was very close to the 2-0 sweep, but he's going to have another try at it. From Montauk, New York, the 25-year-old has 3 open top 8s and 1 win this season. It was just a month ago, and an invitational top 8 to date. Big Coheed and Cambria fan and collector of retro video games. Really just kind of, I think he was the big unknown on Metagame Gurus when their roster was announced. I have to admit, I didn't you know, I'd seen him on SCG Tour events, but he hadn't had that big finish yet. Wasn't happening too much stuff, but really has held his own here, picking up a trophy a month ago and now making the semis again.
Yeah, a little while ago it was a name that I would hear, and I would think, I've heard that name before, not sure exactly who that is, but now I can tell you exactly who Pete Ingram is. Potentially on his way to be consecutive Modern Open champion, back-to-back on the Modern format.
So remember, whoever wins this, their teammate, Andrew Jessup, waits in the finals. He was a 2-0 winner in the other semifinal playing Infect.
And Jessup is the 1 seed. He'll be on the play with Infect against either of these players.
That's scary for both of them.
Yeah, that's scary for anybody.
But this will be it. Game 3 between the two. Ingram back on the play. He had the turn 1 Ancestral Visions there on the draw. Was far ahead on cards, but just narrowly ran out of life points.
Didn't have a healthy mix. Drew too many counterspells, not enough stuff that played to the board.
So, land drops each. We've seen this the last 2 games. They will trade them. Last game, we didn't actually see any Ancestral Visions out of Kevin Jones. I still have to assume they're in the deck.
Well, I was talking to him about it earlier in the day. And, you know, I don't like Visions in the deck anymore. I think if they're there, you do board them in. Maybe he found a way to just not have them in the matchup.
It's interesting. It's the kind of matchup where I think you'd want it, but hard to argue with Kevin right now in the top 4 with the deck. There's sometimes you have it where you have an experimental sideboard card. So, like, you weren't sure about these Ancestral Visions, right?
Right.
And I've been in a tournament where I've had a card that I wasn't sure about, and about halfway through the tournament, I realized, I don't know if this is good in any matchups. And I just started saying, well, live and learn, and I just stopped boarding them in ever.
Yeah, so one of the cards that you would cut for Ancestral Vision is Terminate. It doesn't have a lot of play in this matchup. You need some number, because otherwise Celestial Colonnade will just punch you in the face. And Kevin has already drawn 2 Terminates. So
okay.
He's showing a lot of respect to that. It's entirely possible there are no Ancestral Visions in Kevin's deck.
He fans through it here and he cracks the fetch land. And
Oh, I think I saw one.
there's at least one in. All right.
For one of the Open Series playmats.
Good. I mean, it seems like it would be good here.
Yes.
This is a last call to come up and redeem.
So, player continue to trade land drops. For Ingram, it's a boon to him. Of his first 3 land drops, 2 of them were Celestial Colonnades. If this game goes late, that'll pay off big.
Yeah, and something that Kevin does in this matchup, I personally haven't tried this. I don't know how I feel about it, but he shaves on lightning bolts. There's no creatures to target.
Yeah, they're lava spikes, but they're still your win condition, right?
Yeah, you know, he feels that he'll be able to get a Snapcaster on the table, something like that. And if you draw too many lightning bolts, then you actually just have lava spikes in a deck that's not burned.
Yeah, I understand. It's not much of a card.
Yeah.
Kevin will cast Serum Visions on turn 3. He scries both to the top. His draw was Ancestral Visions, but he's not going to go ahead and suspend that one just yet. He's respecting the Nahiri out of Ingram.
Yeah, don't want to get Nahiri'd if you don't have to.
Ingram will play the 4th land and pass.
And it's not like he's just going to die if he suspends the Ancestral Visions too late.
Players will continue to trade land drops, and now, for the first time, it's Jones with the Ancestral Visions advantage. He suspends one on 4. Ingram, not wanting to be outclassed, draws and suspends one of his own. Plays land 5, says go.
Yeah, things just got interesting.
Both players settling in for the long haul. We'll see whether or not Kevin can take it down. Game 1, when we made it all the way to 10 cards in deck for each player, Ingram's deck list overpowered Kevin's. But you mentioned in sideboard games, that's a lot closer.
Yeah, the decks are a lot closer. Kevin has fewer bad top decks, and something that also happens here, they both have Ancestral Vision in. Kevin's a little leaner on lands, so that once he makes that healthy threshold, gets to 5, 6, 7 mana, he's going to be top decking fewer lands than Ingram. So when he starts resolving Ancestral Visions, it looks a lot more like 3 spells, where Ingram's could be like a land and 2 spells, 2 lands and a spell.
Yeah. Kevin is the proactive player here, so when he draws 3 cards, they look a lot nicer.
Yeah.
Each player keeps making land drops, removing counters from their visions. Points their hand toward the other guy.
Draw, go, Rainbow of Freet, go.
Ooh.
Activate Stocking Stones, go.
Good old Randy Bueller World Championship decks.
Oh, yeah.
That deck's great. How much would you want a Whispers of the Muse here? That'd be good. Probably get Remand.
I mean, we'd get mana leaked like pretty much every stage in the game. Maybe get mana leaked.
Down to 2 counters for Kevin. Just land go. Draw from Pete. Land go, but Pete misses the land drops this time. So for the first time, Kevin's on advantage with visions, and he's on advantage with lands. This is, can he take on the control role?
I'm digging it. Go GRIXIS. Let's see if we can pull it together.
Dark Slick Shores for Jones.
He has some spells that won't be good until certain things happen in the game. He has those Terminates in his hand. It takes activations of Celestial Colonnade to really want to cash those in. We're pretty far from that happening.
I like this from Kevin. He's going to play Snapcaster Mage, flashing back Serum Visions. With his Ancestral Visions about to come off Suspend, I think he can commit something small, maybe.
Yeah, and also just getting the Snapcaster Mage on the table. You know, he's going to have all this card advantage anyway. He gets something that forces action out of Pete.
All right, here's some action. He'll Lightning Bolt the Snapcaster. Untap his Visions at 1. If he has an Ahiri, Pete could try to fight over it. I don't think he does. A lot of counter spells in Pete's hand. We're looking at multiple mana leaks and a negate.
Now, interestingly enough, being the first division here could end up punishing Kevin. Pete could fight a counter war that really messes up Kevin, maybe even counters the Ancestral Vision.
If he wins the counter war here, then they both will trade lots of cards, and then Pete will draw 3.
Yes.
This may be our first point of action. Ancestral Visions from Kevin. Will Pete fight? Now, Kevin has 6 cards in hand right now. Is there the option that Pete just says, you're going to have to discard to hand size, so
yeah,
whatever, just have them all?
You can't possibly do anything with all that many cards. It's an option. I think that given this many counters and just the fact there's not a lot you want to be doing with Mana Leak,
yeah.
I don't know. I would at least go for 1 negate. A little tester with the 1 negate.
He'll negate. Pete has the ability to play 2 more counter spells if it comes to that.
Though double Mana Leak wouldn't do anything here.
Spell Snare on the negate. That is gross for Ingram. 2 Mana Leaks in hand, but there's still 6 mana up. So Ingram now will go for a Snapcaster Mage. Maybe snap that negate off at the Visions, but nah, I don't think that'll resolve either. There's a lot of mana and a lot of cards in Kevin's hand.
Yeah. Presumably, Kevin's going to fight over at least the negate. If he has a Spell Snare or access to Snapcaster Spell Snare, I could see fighting over the Snapcaster Mage. If he has a different counter spell, I would fight over the negate.
So the reason you're saying that is because Snapcaster Spell Snare still leaves Kevin with 3 more mana to play around Mana Leak.
Well, also just that Spell Snare is great against specifically Snapcaster Mage. The other counters, Ingram has to tap out before he has to do anything else.
So Kevin lets him have the Snapcaster Mage, and when Pete goes for the negate, now Kevin plays his own Snapcaster Mage, flashing back Spell Snare. So he'll counter Pete's flashed back negate with this Spell Snare. So Kevin wins the counter war and still with 3 untapped mana. And now he draws 3 off his Visions.
Though now with Ingram still holding onto those Mana Leaks, he'll be able to resolve the Vision on his turn.
Because Kevin had to tap half his mana. Now those Mana Leaks that were no good in this counter war will be good in the next counter war.
Yeah, and I think fighting over that counter war is going to allow Kevin to get out of this turn without having to discard. I'm not positive on that.
He'll crack a Scalding Tarn. Doing this main phase. Is he going to try to resolve some more things?
Yeah, maybe if he had another Vision to suspend.
Oh, I could get behind that.
He's certainly not about to tap all 4 mana.
And Serum Visions for Jones. That'll take him down on mana for the next counter war. I think this to me says he's not even going to try to fight over Ingram's Visions.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good on cards. You can draw some or you can not, whatever.
You can. They can share. They can both have some. All right, Cold. Actually, he'll give. I like this. He concedes the next counter war, but he does main phase a Kolagon's Command to 2 damage, take care of Ingram's Snapcaster Mage, buy back his own Snapcaster. So it says, yeah, have 3 cards, but I'm going to get this 2 or maybe even a 3 for 1. I'll set up for later.
You're fighting the war over card quality, not necessarily card count.
And Ingram gets his own Visions, and his hand now has 3 copies of Mana Leak in it. Ugh. What I like is that Kevin Jones has continued to play in a way where all of Ingram's Mana Leaks are terrible. If Kevin had fought a counter war on Ingram's turn there, those Mana Leaks might have cashed in.
Yeah, definitely. And Kolagon's command getting back Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage is good enough in this matchup where I like doing that. And you're exactly right. Not fighting a counter war that would make Pete's hand live, and also he would just lose.
So, with Kevin tapped out, Pete takes advantage. Snapcaster Mage of his own, flashes back Lightning Bolt, takes care of Kevin's Snapcaster Mage, then shocks for Steam Vents and passes. And we are somewhat back where we started, where players making land drops, just developing this control mirror.
Yep.
Now it is Kevin Jones, it is Tasigur for single black. Once again, the mana leaks are just awful. So well played here by Kevin. He's just I don't know if he suspects or realizes just how many mana leaks he's been making dead, but it's the difference right here.
Yeah, for sure. And Tasigur is a solid play here, solid pickup, very efficient, forces some action on Ingram. I believe Ingram has an answer in a Path to Exile, I think I've seen in his hand.
Land number 9 for Kevin. Polluted Delta. 2 possible activations if he wants them. He'll pass.
And I believe that Blood Crypt will be... Blood Crypt and Basic Swamp should be in Kevin's deck yet.
All right, so he has something left to go with it. It's not dead.
Yes.
We did see that game 1. What was it? Toward the end of the game, Kevin ran out of lands to fetch.
Yeah, and that does happen sometimes.
So Pete just untaps, draws, and passes. No land drop. And now Kevin can go to work with those Tasigur activations. See his hand. 2 copies of Terminate. So if Kevin starts tapping out on end step here, so, maybe Tasigur activation, terminates, is there a way that Pete can punish him for that? Some sort of instant speed thing that if Kevin takes down his mana here?
He can get aggressive with some Snapcaster Mages. Kevin is on 14.
That's not that bad.
Yeah.
So Tasigur will be activated. In response, Pete will Path to Exile it. 4 basics already in play for Kevin, so this is just straight up removal.
Yeah, no downside to that Path to Exile.
But here's the activation. Lightning Bolt in the yard, Electrolyze in the yard. So Pete's choices are none of them good. Bolt, Electrolyze, Snapcaster Mage, Serum Visions, Counter Squall. Yeah, he'll give Kevin a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, from 17, I like giving him the Bolt here.
All right, he'll Bolt Snapcaster with it then. Fine.
Yeah, Pete wasn't about to close the game with that Snapcaster Mage alone anyway.
Back to no creatures, but Kevin continues to win on the 2-for-1 front. Plays a land and passes. Kevin now at 10 lands in play to Pete's 7. That's adding up.
Yeah, and he should still have a Blood Crypt to find, but he has a fetch land in hand that's going to be potentially delve fodder, and that's it.
Another draw and pass from Ingram. His hand is now full. Nahiri, Lightning Helix, 3 mana leaks. And Kevin will end step Snapcaster Mage. He'll go back to work. I think he's going to eye this Electrolyze.
Yeah. There's an interesting dynamic when one player's hand is full, where you just want to pass the turn to them, force them to do something. Maybe they don't have anything good to do. When both players' hands are full, you kind of both want to be doing something.
All right, so it's actually Kolagon's command he's going to go for, not the Electrolyze. That makes more sense. There's another Snapcaster.
Yeah.
That's going to force some action on Pete. This is all on Pete's end step. Ingram will try to remand the Kolagon's command. Let's see if Kevin responds.
Kevin still has those 2 Terminates in hand, which are just gross.
The Terminates versus Mana Leaks fight. Kevin doesn't even fight. So Pete gets the counter spell that draws a card. Draws another land. Well, that's not much. And now Kevin heads up here. He does fetch up that Blood Crypt you're talking about. Doesn't want to draw it.
Yeah, drawing that would be terrible.
Untaps. 10 lands in play. Swings with Snapcaster Mage. Ingram taking some damage, down to 15.
And speaking of terrible draws, Polluted Delta, the pickup for Jones there.
These fetch lands don't do anything anymore?
Nope.
Jones says go. On end step now, Ingram will attempt to Lightning Helix away the Snapcaster Mage. That will work. Mage dies, Ingram back up to 18. So for a while here, this seemed like it was an advantage to Kevin Jones. He had the better hand. He had the better card advantage. He certainly has more lands. One thing that's, I think, starting to happen here is that the deck list advantage from Ingram is slowly kicking in.
So what we're seeing Celestial Colonnade is winning this game, and it's not by activating, it's by being in Pete's deck.
Right.
Kevin has these Terminates specifically to deal with that card. Had he gone for maybe Hero's Downfall in his 75, instead of having Dreadboard, you could have Nahiri and Colonnade covered with that. His hand wouldn't be quite as bad. It could maybe go down to 1 copy, but double Terminate is like a double mulligan.
You see Kevin cashing in again on his own end step. He plays Snapcaster Mage, flashes back his own Electrolyze, puts Pete to 16 and draws a card. But now Pete gets to untap.
Yep.
And because of cards like Lightning Helix in his deck, you know, this Lava Spike plan that Kevin can kind of be on, where he just points burn upstairs, doesn't feel like it's working.
Nope.
And Pete's down on lands, but his cards are just better. Here he's going to try Nahiri. Kevin's ready. He'll remand. Only 3 mana up. Is it time for some mana leaks?
Well,
oh, wow.
Well, Pete has a couple options here. He can double mana leak. He can just cast the Nahiri again.
Okay. I guess the really conservative option would be to just put the Nahiri in his hand and say go.
Yeah, that's probably where I would actually lean here.
So, yeah, okay, we'll try again next turn.
Yeah, I got time. I got time if you got time. I can play this game all day.
There we go, and that's the line.
Just a couple friends hanging out. Let's play some more Magic, bro.
I love control mirrors. Let's keep doing this. So go back to Jones. He evens the life totals at 13. A Snapcaster Mage getting in again. And now it's the draw from Jones. It's his 2nd copy of Tasigur. This is one that Pete may want to try to fight over. It is one of Kevin's best cards in the matchup. A lot of mana. What I love about these in this deck is that it's such a light mana commitment. It's just a single black to make the card.
Yeah, 1 mana, 4/5.
Great.
Similar efficiency to Tarmogoyf, but it can't be spell snared.
There is a Path to Exile in Ingram's hand. His hand is Path, Dispel, 3 mana leaks, and a Nahiri. So he'll try to Path the Tasigur. Dispel from Jones.
Presumably a Dispel coming back.
Dispel back from Ingram.
Kevin has...
Yeah, if he can win this fight, it's big.
Yeah, Mana Leak or Counter Squall.
Mana Leak the Dispel.
Love it.
Ingram cannot, he loses the Counter War. He can Mana Leak back all he wants. And I guess he does want to as well. These aren't getting any better.
If you Mana Leak back, if Kevin pays, you turn Kevin off of maybe double Mana Leaking your Nahiri.
I like this a lot. So he pays Mana Leaks back. Kevin taps 3 to pay. But it means that, yeah, on Pete's turn, he's very likely to resolve the Nahiri.
Now, if Pete finds Wrath of God in this window.
Oh, that would be something.
That would be excellent.
But he's running out of cards. Here's Nahiri. His hand is just lands and Mana Leaks.
The unfortunate thing for Ingram here, there's only 1 Wrath of God in the 75. Well, he can't even, he has exactly 3 white sources, so he could theoretically Nahiri loot to try to find Wrath of God. I think he's waiting here to cast a Nahiri because for a turn when Tasigur is tapped to exile that.
Sure. Swing with both. He'll put Ingram down to 7. He'll activate Colonnade.
And here comes the Terminate.
Yeah, Kevin's been waiting all game for this.
Thrilled about that. Since turn 1, I've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, he got 2 of them. I like this. First, he activates Tasigur. He doesn't want to actually get a Terminate back.
Yeah. Yeah, very heads up by Jones here.
Flips Serum Vision's Dreadbore. Dreadbore normally a weak card here, except that Ingram's game plan is sculpted around this Nahiri.
And if he were to give Jones a counter spell here, that's not ideal either.
So Jones gets the Dreadbore. Now he terminates the Colonnade. Still with 4 mana up, Ingram is going to lose the creature land.
This is actually looking really bad for Ingram now.
It's been the game plan since a long time ago. Kevin has made all of Ingram's mana leaks terrible. Ingram had 3. The first one was used when Kevin had 6 mana open and could pay. The other 2 have yet to be cashed in. Here's Nahiri. She'll exile Tasigur. Tasigur will be activated, puts Gurmag, Angler, and Counter Squall in the yard.
Pretty sure Kevin's getting a Terminate back here.
Yeah, just when Kevin thought he could get rid of all of them. Here's another. Thinking about giving him Mana Leak.
I suppose Ingram has enough lands in play where that's fine.
Yeah, he'll give Kevin Mana Leak. I still like giving him Terminate because Kevin already, I mean, I guess he doesn't know that Kevin already has Terminates.
And he could be punished for that exact lack of information.
Yeah, Lightning bolts down the Snapcaster Mage. So here's the plan. Pete's going to, I guess he can't really try to protect any here. He gave Kevin a Dreadbore.
Yeah.
Dreadboard away, and here he's gone. But there's no threats on either side, and Pete can win this top deck war.
Theoretically, he's so far behind just by cards available already. Kevin's hand is massive, and Ingram's hand is double Mana Leak.
Here's Colonnade. Kevin will Terminate.
Kevin's pretty
Pass.
capable of paying for both of those Mana Leaks no matter what spells he goes for.
Right, so what Pete's going to have to hope happens here is that Kevin just floods out. I mean, if Pete just starts, you know, draws Nihiris for a couple of turns in a row, now we have a chance.
Yep, and finally we see Thought Scour targeting Ingram. Kevin knows he's got enough stuff in his graveyard. He wants to draw a card. Whatever the top card Ingram's deck, doesn't matter.
He'll mill it again. If he mills an Emrakul, he actually turns off all of Pete's Snapcaster Mages.
Yeah, that'd be
which
sweet.
is pretty great.
So Kevin failed to find any proactive action, so just has to pass the turn.
We're back over to Ingram. Plays basic mountain, passes. It's a game of who can draw something relevant first. But keep in mind that Kevin's got a huge advantage on the control front.
Yeah, and even if Pete draws something relevant, Kevin will have it covered no matter what it is.
Yeah, it looks like so many Mana Leaks.
3 or 4 Mana Leaks, a Spell Snare for a Snapcaster Mage.
So you know those Mana Leaks, some are white bordered and some are black bordered. It's the same art, but I know you're a big fan of Delver decks, but I got to point that one out.
White bordered Mana Leak's pretty loose.
Well, I like it, but when it's next to black bordered Mana Leak in the same deck.
And Kevin just discarded a fetch land instead of putting a dead fetch into play. Doesn't want to trick himself into paying 1 life.
Lands continue to trade for both players.
Oof. Kolagon's Command, I believe, was the pickup on that turn.
Right, so Kevin doesn't have any pressure, but boy, does he have a lot of answers.
Yeah.
But players are going to trade back and forth here.
And that Kolagon's Command should be turning into pressure in short order.
Yeah. With Pete at 7, end step, Kolagon's Command, buying back Snapcaster Mage and dealing 2 damage to Pete. That's going to work. Pete down to 5.
I'll give you one guess as to what that Snapcaster Mage is intending to flash back.
I believe it's Kolagon's Command.
I like
That
it.
sounds great. Suspends Ancestral Visions. Pass.
As if he didn't have enough going on.
Remand from Pete.
Okay, so now Pete's actually at a threshold where he can theoretically fight some counter war.
Yeah, Kevin knows that, so he's not going to let him do it. He'll just untap, take a counter off the Visions.
Yeah, I like the patience by Kevin here.
He drew, it looks like Gurmag Angler. Down will be fine. Kevin's got to count the deck. He's very low on cards. He's got to do something here. Lands from Ingram. Pass. Now here comes Snapcaster Mage from Kevin Jones. Targeting, yeah, he has that Kolagon's Command up at the top. Remember, Ingram is at 5.
Yeah.
So pulls out a Snapcaster Mage and a Kolagon's Command. He's going to go for Kolagon's Command. He's got to do some action here before he mills out. So he's Kolagon's Command is cast. Remand on Kolagon's Command. Kevin will Spell Snare the Remand. But these Mana Leaks that have been dead for so long, I do think Ingram's going to get to cash in some of them. That trading of land drops back and forth let Pete catch up on mana.
Yeah, not a big win, but it's something. It will take 2 Mana Leaks to get past this 1 Spell Snare, assuming Kevin doesn't follow up in a meaningful way.
So Mana Leak on Spell Snare.
Kevin has a bunch of Mana Leaks himself, but given that he only has 4 mana on tap, I assume that he just pays here.
We will see. Still large amount of cards for both players.
And I think I just saw a Spell Snare in Kevin's hand, so he can
Yeah,
pay and then Spell Snare the next Mana Leak.
Yeah, so I think Pete has at least 2, maybe even 3. But then
he's going to need it.
yeah, he'll need all of them. All right. So stack is Kolagon's Command from Kevin. That's being remanded, which is being Spell Snared, and Pete is Mana Leaking it.
Now, the issue with paying 3, you might want to have access to Spell Snare and Mana Leak in case Pete has a Snapcaster Mage, but I don't know how impactful even Snapcaster Mage would be in this window. Maybe he wants to wait until he's closer to unsuspending this Ancestral Vision to force an issue like that.
Also has Remand available. Kevin will pay for Mana Leak. All right, so that spell's done resolving. Ingram will Mana Leak again. Kevin can snare. He will. Does Ingram have another counter? 3 cards left. I think it is Fetch Land and 2 Path to Exiles. So, to recap, Spell Snare counters Mana Leak, Spell Snare counters Remand. Kolagon's command will work. It is 2 damage to Ingram. Return Snapcaster Mage to Jones's hand. Ingram now down to 3, a very dangerous place to be.
Oh, yeah.
And Kevin with a Snapcaster in hand. Ingram will Path to Exile away the Snapcaster while Kevin's tapped out. No Lightning Bolts in Kevin's graveyard, fortunately for Ingram.
Yeah, not lethal just yet, but two attacks from Snapcaster Mage gets there.
And then now Kevin takes his turn, takes his Ancestor Visions down to 2, casts, oh my, Tasigur.
And Pete knows that there's a backup Snapcaster Mage from here as well. And Counter Squall's in the graveyard for the Path to Exile in Pete's hand.
Okay, so, I mean, the Counter Squall is just going to happen. I mean, he can't.
There's nothing he could do about it.
Right, like.
Oh, and Pete's actually tapped off a white mana. He'll have to wait until his turn to do anything in the first place. He can't crack Scalding Tarn to find white mana at 3 life.
No, I don't want to go to 2 when my opponent has Snapcaster Counter Squall.
Well, he would go to 0. This is a blue-red fetch land.
Oh, well, that makes it even simpler. Yeah, I don't want to get. Yeah, I don't. Nope. I think the Sacred Foundry and Hallowed Fountain are already in play. He may not even be able to get white off it, but doesn't matter anyway. Draws for turn.
GRIXIS.
He's so close. This one's looking like the rematch was on when Ingram won the first game, but Kevin is going to throw a wrench in it. Celestial Purge, the draw for Ingram.
Well, now he has 2 answers to the Tasigur anyway.
Yeah, he could have gone for it, except if he does, he's doing this during Kevin's upkeep. Because if they did this thing where Kevin Snapcaster Counter Squalls on Pete's turn, then Pete is dead to the attack.
Yep.
So, now during Kevin's upkeep, it is Purge on Tasigur. Kevin is going for the win here. He starts with a Mana Leak.
Yeah, how many of these can
Pete
you pay
pays,
for?
yeah.
I've got a bunch.
How about another Mana Leak? 1 white bordered, 1 black.
Get him.
Boom.
The 1-2 punch. White bordered Mana Leak into black bordered Mana Leak.
How about another Mana Leak?
And he can cast all 3 Mana Leaks and still have Snapcaster Counter Squall up.
Path to Exile. Kevin, you have it. You have the Snapcaster in hand.
Are you just trying to... What are you doing, Kevin? He's your friend. Don't mess with him like this.
Snapcaster Mage. I'd do Mana Leak. Come on. Fourth Mana Leak. Now he'll Counter Squall the Path. Pete goes to 1, and there you have the match. Kevin Jones coming back with GRIXIS Delver. Takes game 2, takes game 3. He is moving on to the finals.
Couldn't be happier for Kevin right now.
And
awesome stuff.
What a dogfight. He goes to the end game against JESKAI Control. It's where he lost game 1. It's where he almost lost game 2, steals a game 2 there, and then overpowers Ingram for the match.
Yeah, if you're